Welcome back. This time we're talking about A Ghost Story, written and directed by David Lowery, whose most mainstream project to date is Disney's reboot of Pete's Dragon, but for the most part his career has been in more indie and art house films. And A Ghost Story definitely falls in the latter of those two categories. Now, what I'm about to say is admittedly filled with gross generalizations, but you can kind of separate films into four categories. You've got your big budget blockbusters, you've got your mainstream films, you've got your indie, smaller budget films, and then you've got your art house films. And it's this last category where you often see your more experimental projects and other things like that. And like I said earlier, A Ghost Story definitely falls into this one. Now for me, I can enjoy a film no matter what kind of movie it is. So I went into a Ghost Story somewhat intrigued. It had some very interesting trailers that really didn't tell us a whole lot and left a lot more questions than answers. And those are personally my favorite trailers. So when this film expanded out to my area, I decided I needed to go see it. And I have to say, it's an interesting film. And that's probably the best thing I can say about it. Do I think it completely works in the way it was intended? For me at least, I don't think it did. It does present a very interesting and unique story. It does pose some questions that will linger with you after you're done watching. And it does boast a very strong performance from actress Rooney Mara. But as I said, I don't think it all comes together exactly like they were intending it would. Now, one of the problems with art house films is that since they are so experimental and try different things, both visually and in their storytelling techniques, that if someone doesn't quite latch on to it as much as other people who did really enjoy the film, the easy argument is oh, you didn't get it. So I will freely admit, maybe I just didn't get this movie. I will say I did enjoy aspects of the film. It just didn't work for me as much as it needed to for me to really recommend it to other people. Now, obviously, if you're not into art house films, this isn't going to offer you much. But if you like smaller fare, different ways of telling stories, and just, you know what an art house film is when you see it. I mean, admittedly, that's probably the easiest way I can say it. Probably the most recent film that I saw that would fall into this category would be Patterson, which was, I think, the last film of 2016 that I saw. So you kind of know going in if this is your kind of movie or not. And even if it is, it's not guaranteed to be one that you enjoy. Like I said, I found things I liked about this movie, just didn't quite all work. So I'll be kind of revolving around the film itself. So what exactly is it about? It stars Rooney Mara and Casey Affleck. They are a couple about to move from their home that they've been renting to somewhere else. Tragedy strikes, and essentially a ghost appears. And this is probably the most visually striking part of the film, and if you've seen any of the trailers or the movie posters, you can see that the ghost is essentially a figure wearing a sheet with eyes cut out of it. I mean, it's the stereotypical children's Halloween costume, but in the hands of this film, that character, the ghost, takes on such a sense of melancholy. That is an aspect of the film that works very well. The emotions in this film almost always work. That was not the problem I had with this movie. Rooney Mara delivers a phenomenal performance. The camera work is very interesting. There are a lot of long static shots, which early on work quite well because it kind of unnerves you. Traditional filmmaking techniques have sort of trained us if there's going to be a long static shot, something bad's going to happen at the end. And there's several early static shots where I was expecting something horrible to happen, and it really didn't. That was just the techniques that this filmmaker used with this movie. There were a lot of long takes, and that's where Rooney Mara especially has to deliver some very long and emotional performances, and is spot on throughout all of that. She delivers a phenomenal performance. I give her all credit. Casey Affleck is good as well as in his scenes. They're essentially the only two main characters of this film. There are other people that show up here or there, but those are the two primary actors. Really, for a film like this, a lot of it lies with the themes. What is the story trying to tell aside from the actual story of the film? And this is where I don't think it quite landed, at least for me, the way it was intended to. There is a scene about midway, or maybe slightly more than midway through, where there's a kind of a drunken monologue. And I have to think that this monologue has more dialogue in it than just about the entire rest of the movie. And in some ways, it felt like Lowery was not trusting his audience to get what he was trying to get across, and had to have a scene where some of it was being spelled out. I could be mistaken in that, but it did feel like that when it was happening. My only other real complaint with the movie, and this is sort of a small pet peeve of mine, and you don't typically see it except in smaller features, is where you have a zoom in or a zoom out, and the camera stops zooming in the middle of the shot. So you kind of you're like this, and then it stops, and then you've got a static shot for a little bit longer. I don't know why that's just always annoyed me. I will freely admit that I'm not a filmmaker. I talk a lot about movies. I've watched a lot of movies. I have to think that that's probably discouraged, but I honestly don't really know. But it's something that's always really bothered me, and I remember there were at least 2 times where that happened in this movie, and it just kind of pulled me out of the film a little bit. So A Ghost Story is a very art housey film. It is a very deep film about loss, about how we are remembered after our death, how we ourselves, or at least some aspect of ourselves, live on after our death, both in a spiritual way as well as how we are remembered and our legacies that are left behind. All of this is sort of mixed together into a very interesting story. I'm glad I saw it. It's not a film I think I would go see again. That's where I have a little bit of difficulty on deciding to whether or not to recommend this movie. If you saw the trailer and saw that this is going to be a very unusual art house film, and you thought, you know what, I want to go see that, it's probably worth going to see. If you saw this trailer and go, no, this isn't for me, then it probably isn't. I try to do my best to give you recommendations. So that's the best I can give you. So if you've seen A Ghost Story, what did you think about it? And did you think that the story and the themes succeeded better than I did? As always, you can subscribe to my channel, check out some other reviews, and until next time, I'll see you at the movies.